Hello, horror fans, and welcome back to the Script to Screen podcast, where we delve into the spine-tingling world of horror cinema. Each week, we look at the scariest scenes, unmask the deeper meanings behind your favorite horror films, and explore the psychology of fear that keeps us coming back for more.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favorite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine-tingling stories that haunt the silver screen.
I'm Will.
And I am Lee.
So Lee, how have you been? And what have you been watching, dude?
Yeah, not too bad, my man. Not too bad. Can't complain. Nobody listens if I do, anyway. So as for my viewing history, I've taken the time to catch up with the Pooniverse this past week. So I saw Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, and Bambi the Reckoning.
Yeah, I still can't believe the Pooniverse is actually a thing, Lee.
Well, Pooh 2 was a definite improvement over the first one. But to be fair, that was never really going to be a hard challenge. The plot does go to some weird places in this one, as Tigger and Owl join Pooh and Piglet's reign of terror.
I'll never get over Piglet's reign of terror. I think that's a concept that's completely alien to me. How do these childhood treasures translate to the kind of horrific world of the Pooniverse, Lee?
Well, Tigger was basically kind of a lame Timu version of Freddy. He's all like, oh, bitch this and bitch that. But Owl was kind of cool, I think. He came off a bit like a Shakespearean version of the Creeper. And the costumes and effects as a whole were a massive improvement over the original. It's also a pretty mean film. Like, the kills are often quite brutal and sadistic.
Sounds right up your alley, to be honest, Lee.
Well, it's definitely not a negative from me, but I can see it putting off some more casual horror fans, maybe. Bambi the Reckoning was actually pretty good. There was some basic theme running through the whole thing, and Zombie Bambi wasn't the worst special effect I've ever seen. Although kind of being a giant fanged deer did kind of limit the kill variety to biting, stomping, and goring. But one thing I absolutely love about the Pooniverse, besides the name, is the really cool little sort of animated storybook style intros we get at the beginning of each movie. I think it just really kind of adds to the style and gives the films kind of a sort of unique, unifying hook. Anyway, how about you, my man? What's been on your screens this week?
Well, I only managed a couple of things this week, Lee. Nothing as kind of interesting as the Pooniverse, I don't think. Certainly doesn't have as good a name. But I watched a film called The Package, and this is a Gene Hackman, Tommy Lee Jones thriller. It's directed by Andrew Davis, who's probably best known for The Fugitive. His work with Steven Seagal as well, the great Steven Seagal's Under Siege and whatnot, things like that. But it's pretty good kind of political action thriller. And a great turn from Dennis Franz, who you might recognize him from NYPD Blue. He's always good in a movie. I also watched a documentary about John Candy, which was called I Like Me, which was just delightful, dude. I love a bit of John Candy, and that sort of charts his life and films. So that was really good fun to watch as well.
That's cool, man. Who doesn't like a bit of candy?
I know, right?
Awesome, dude. So what's strapped on the table for dissection this week?
Well, Lee, this week we're going to be looking at the first ever episode of the televisual titan, The Walking Dead, which ran for 11 seasons and an impressive 177 episodes.
Nice. I mean, I'm a massive fan of the comics, and I used to love the show before I kind of ran out of steam around Series 9, but I do keep meaning to go back and finish the whole thing off at some point.
Yeah, you know what, dude? I'm exactly the same. Like, I'm a huge fan of the comics. Loved those and stuck with the show until about season 9. And yeah, like yourself, like just keep meaning to go back and finish it off. And there's been some spin-offs now, hasn't there?
There have been multiple. Hell, there's probably as many spin-off episodes as there have been main ones by now.
Yeah.
Let me reel them off for you, just so we can kind of keep tabs. So first off, we have Fear the Walking Dead, which ran for 8 seasons and 113 episodes. This one started out as a prequel of sorts before the timeline caught up with the main show. Next comes The Walking Dead World Beyond, which was set 10 years after the outbreak and ran for 2 seasons or 20 episodes. Then there was the short-lived anthology series Tales of the Walking Dead, which ran for just one season with a meager 6 episodes. Then we have The Walking Dead Dead City, which has run for 2 seasons so far and 14 episodes in total. Probably the most successful spin-off they've had, or at least the most popular, is The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, which looks set to run for 4 seasons and 26 episodes in total. And finally, there is The Walking Dead The Ones Who Live, which ran for 1 season and 6 episodes. And breathe.
That's a lot, isn't it? Yeah, AMC is sure as hell getting their money's worth, right?
Oh, for sure, man. I mean, there's also a collection of short webisodes and digital shorts that fill in gaps and add some pretty sweet backstory that are worth checking out. Then, of course, there was the groundbreaking comic that started it all, which ran for 193 issues, and several video game adaptations, including the fantastic Telltale series and its plucky heroine Clementine. Then throw in a truckload of tie-in novels, and you've basically got like an ocean of zombie-related content to dive into here.
Yeah, undeniably impressive, that Lee, isn't it? It's quite a lot going on there. But we will be focusing on the pilot episode of the original series for the time being. Now, the initial episode was titled Days Gone By and first screened October 31st, 2010. And The Walking Dead was a hit right out of the gate, drawing 5.35 million viewers and being the highest rated cable series premiere of the year. So before we get cracking, what made you choose this particular script for Dissection, Lee?
Well, it's been a while since we dipped into TV, so it's always good to have a refresher, I think, on four-act structure. Plus, as we've already mentioned, The Walking Dead is based off of the critically acclaimed comic book of the same name. So I thought it'd be cool just to kind of compare the first issue of the comic to the first episode of the show and just see how closely they kind of kept to the source material. And secondly, I mean, this script is written by Frank Darabont, who, as we learned during our Blob episode, is an absolute master of the craft. So I'm expecting this to be another textbook example of how to write like a goddamn genius. And I thought it'd be interesting to look back at his style in 1988's The Blob and see how his technique has developed, or indeed maybe remained the same after 20 odd years.
Okay, awesome. So we've got our usual look at whether or not the show adheres to the tried and tested four-act structure, how closely the show holds to the original comic, and how Darabont just elevates his script work to another level, as well as how his newer work compares to his older texts. And speaking of Darabont, he didn't stick around past the first season, is that correct?
That is correct, but mate, there is a story and a half there.
Nice. Tell us about that then, dude.
Okay. So Darabont's influence and style is all over season one. You know, it's slow, it's gritty, it's all about survival minute by minute. It's cinematic, and quite frankly, it's a beautiful example of a master at work. But in July 2011, midway through season two's production, AMC abruptly fired Darabont, citing erratic and unprofessional behavior. This would not be the end of the matter, though. Oh, no. In 2013, Darabont and his agency CAA sued AMC for a breach of contract and unpaid profits in an epic legal battle that would rage on for the best part of a decade. Ultimately, AMC would settle out of court and paid Darabont and CAA $200 million, which is one hell of a payday, however you shake it. The fallout on screen, however, was clearly noticeable. Despite the runaway success of season one, for the second season, AMC wanted more episodes, but at a greatly slashed budget, leading to the now infamous "let's spend all season at the farm" plotline that bored a lot of fans to tears and could very well have doomed the show right there.
Yeah, so why do you think AMC wanted to sever ties with someone of Darabont's caliber in the first place? Do we know?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of rumors and hearsay from both sides, and to be honest, I'm not in an informed enough position to comment either way on the subject.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess all we know is that AMC settled, and I can't imagine, multi-billion-dollar media companies make a habit of settling out of court without good reason. So make of that what you will, I guess.
Yeah, indeedy. I mean, we'll talk more about Darabont's original vision for the show during the breakdown. Now, we're going to be comparing the pilot episode to an undated copy of the script written by Frank Darabont and based on the original works of Robert Kirkman. Now, this script weighs in at a spot on 60 pages.
Okay, man, awesome. Well, let's get cracking as we take a deep dive into The Walking Dead Days Gone By. After waking from a coma in an abandoned hospital, Sheriff's Deputy Rick Grimes discovers a world ravaged by the undead. Alone and disorientated, he begins a desperate search for his family, unaware that survival now means confronting both the living and the dead in a world where society has crumbled overnight. We open on a quiet country road as a police cruiser comes into view. The vehicle pulls to a stop and a lone officer emerges. Thus, we're introduced to the series lead, Rick Grimes, played to perfection by Andrew Lincoln. We see we are at a gas station surrounded by abandoned cars. Rick clutches a gas can as he makes his way cautiously towards the pumps.
Yeah, there are some really cool visuals on display here. I mean, you got discarded toys, crude tents, a bunch of throwing knives embedded in a tree, and several fly-infested corpses baking in their cars. Now, if you look carefully, each of which boasts a noticeable head wound.
Yeah, so Rick spots a sign that reads no gas and turns to leave when he hears some movement. He drops and looks under a parked car to see a young girl's feet shuffle before stooping to pick up a dirty stuffed animal. He immediately tries to comfort the lost child, but as she turns to him, we see her face for the first time, or what is left of it, and this girl is clearly deadly.
Dum dum dum.
Rick is understandably upset by this, but seemingly not surprised. And as the tiny girl zombie shuffles menacingly towards him, he pulls his revolver and bamly, he puts a bullet in her forehead. It's brutal. It's our first scare, and it clocks in at around the 4 minute mark. And boom, cue opening credits, dude.
I mean, yeah, what a fantastic cold open, textbook world building, and capping off with a brilliantly disturbing face punch. So, I mean, this is largely as written in the script, with just a few small changes. First off, we first meet Rick inside the cruiser as he spots the gas station and drives up to the abandoned cars. And secondly, the dead girl breaks into a shambling, snarling run, indicating that this breed of zombie is capable of moving with some speed and coordination. And then finally, after shooting the girl, zombies rise up from all around, stirred by the sound of the gunshot.
Yeah, so let's get straight into it, man. So, why these small changes, do you think?
Meeting Rick from a distance rather than in the car, I think, kind of helps build the sense of isolation. I mean, we're watching him in almost a voyeuristic fashion in that first shot, and I think it adds to the, I don't know, the general emptiness and desolation. You know, sitting in a car with someone is a lot more personal. You're pretty much in someone's bubble. Then, you know what I mean? As for the girl running, she does kind of pick up the pace. Could it be classed on screen? She kind of picks up the pace a little bit. Could it be classed as a run? Maybe, I guess. I mean, to be fair, she also seemingly recognizes and interacts with the stuffed toy, you know, displaying a certain level of base intelligence or recognition. And this is something the show would pretty much abandon until much later down the line, where the idea of the zombies retaining some base instinct or intellect would be explored in more detail. And finally, the horde of zombies rising up. I kind of like this idea, but I mean, it's just before a cut to the credits, and two things initially come to my mind here. Firstly, if we're going to end the cold open on Rick seemingly in danger, we'd need a resolution, and we never really return to this scene again. Secondly, the opening titles act as a reset of sorts for the audience, and we'll spend those 30 seconds or so dwelling on what we last saw. And the image of Rick shooting a young child, I think, is far more impactful than him realizing he's surrounded. At least it is to me. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I pretty much agree with all of that, to be honest. I think that's pretty spot on. It's interesting about the girl's recognition of the toy because, we do see more signs of zombie recognition later in the episode. And it's interesting they abandoned that, I think.
Mm.
I mean, I have to say, dude, watching this opening, I was actually reminded of John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13,
Oh,
with
yeah,
that sort of early, sort of girl death. It's
yeah.
pretty brutal. So the opening credits roll, and that iconic theme music by genre legend Bear McCreary kicks in for the first time.
What a great name. I wish I was called Bear.
In some circles, Lee, you are.
Incidentally, I was genuinely this close to changing my name to Batman at one point.
Really?
Yeah, man. It was mainly to the place I worked at the time. would have to let me wear a name badge that said Batman. And all my mates were like, we'll pay for you to change your name, but we won't pay for you to change it back.
So, so you almost changed your name to Batman just so you could wear a Batman name badge at work.
That was part of the reason, yeah. I mean, it just kind of rolls off the tongue, don't you think? Like Batman Bentley.
Yeah, that is pretty good. That's pretty good. I have to say, like, I mean, your head remains a mystery to me, but that does sound pretty good. Sometimes I think it'd be interesting to experience a few hours of Lee Brain, you know?
Oh, it's an experience, no doubt about it.
Anyway, so after the credits, we go back in time and pre-outbreak as Rick and his partner slash BFF Shane shoot the shit over lunch in their patrol car. The conversation moves to more serious matters, and we learn that Rick and his wife Laurie are going through something of a rough patch. Shane, of course, is played by the incomparable John Bernthal.
I love that guy.
Yeah, in a certain type of role, there's few better, no doubt about that. Their male bonding lunch is cut short by a radio dispatch saying armed suspects are heading their way, and the boys are instantly all business. They ditch their burgers and head off in hot pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much word for word as written in the script.
So Rick and Shane set up a stinger to blow out the criminals' tyres and form a roadblock with another squad car. It's not long before the suspect vehicle hits the spikes and the car blows out in spectacular fashion, flipping over and tumbling down an embankment before coming to a metal-tangled halt. These hardy hoodlums aren't going down without a fight, though, and emerge from the wreck guns blazing. Rick is hit and goes down while Shane and the other cops ventilate the remaining perps. Rick's okay, though, Lee. It's a false alarm, as his bulletproof vest took the brunt of the impact, leaving him only badly winded. Unbeknownst to our heroes, though, there's a third man in the car, Lee. As Rick turns, he takes a bullet in the side, and Shane drops the gunman, but Rick is in bad shape, and we fade to white as Shane administers some sweaty roadside bed manner.
Stay away from the light, Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. We then get a strangely hallucinogenic POV shot of Shane bringing Rick some flowers in a decidedly hideous vase. And from his words, we get the impression he is visiting his buddy quite often. We then snap to a close-up shot of Rick, who, let's face it, has clearly seen better days. And through a raspy voice, he mocks the vase, but Shane is gone. Rick looks over at the flowers, which are now brittle and long dead. Rick struggles to get out of bed, but clearly weak and dehydrated, he tumbles to the floor and calls for help. No help arrives, though, and Rick barely manages to get to the adjoining bathroom, where he greedily gulps down water from a tap. Now, somewhat hydrated, he heads out into the corridor, and his room has been crudely barricaded with a hospital bed, and the hospital is desolate and seemingly ransacked.
So, if you're an avid listener of the show, if not, why not? You may recall our recent 28 Days Later episode, in which we discussed the obvious similarities between the opening of that movie and that of The Walking Dead. If you'd like to hear more on the uncanny resemblance, go check out that episode. But suffice to say, in terms of who did it first, the short answer is The Walking Dead.
Back on the screen now, though, and if our thoroughly disorientated hero hadn't quite picked up that something is seriously wrong, the sight of a dead nurse, pretty much eaten to the bone, is enough to convince him things have gone south during his recuperation. As Rick continues moving through the abandoned hospital, things don't improve, Lee. Bullet holes riddle the walls and blood has pooled on the floor in brilliant uses of mise-en-scene. And I have to say, just how good is Lincoln here? I mean, he's moving through the set, reacting to everything, and it's like a sensory overload for the poor guy right now. He then comes to a pair of double doors sealed with a plank and heavy chains, and on the doors are written the iconic words, "Don't open, dead inside." No, it's definitely "Don't open, dead inside," obviously.
I'm just saying it's not the clearest instruction is all.
Yeah, maybe not. But it's both iconic and disturbingly, and has served as a calling card for the show since its early days. And it's our next real scare, I'd say, clocking in at around the 19-minute mark.
Check out how this iconic moment is immortalized in the script.
Double doors. At the end of the hall, a sign, cafeteria. Rick steps into frame. There's a 2x4 jammed through the door handles on this side. The door handles are chained and padlocked too. Painted hastily on the left door is a message, "Don't open," and on the right door, "Dead." He approaches slowly, wondering what it means. Rick's POV, pushing slowly toward the door. The doors heave slowly outward, pushed from the other side. The 2x4 creaks, and the chain goes taut. Rick flinches back, stares in horror as fingers probe through the crack before his eyes, pale, wriggling, fish-white fingers with torn fingernails. Then more fingers appear, all up and down the crack of the door, straining, seeking. Faint grunting is heard within, a sound like malevolent feral pigs. Rick backs away, terrified. Sees the elevator, hits the button. Nothing happens. Of course, the power's down. He continues to a door marked stairs, throws one last look back at the cafeteria doors. Those awful, weird fingers are still there, wriggling in the crack.
Darabont is just so good at invoking visual imagery with his text. I mean, he's like a literary Picasso. And one thing that always strikes me just on this page alone, like in the Blob, his characters are always in motion, always active participants in the scene, you know?
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful, isn't it? Now, with the elevators out of action, Rick stumbles into a pitch black stairwell where he uses a handful of handy matches to navigate the total darkness and reach the exit on the lower level. And it's a brilliant use of contrast here. We go from the bright, relentless, and shocking sensory assault of the hospital to a slow, pitch black descent as Darabont expertly changes gears and takes things down a notch.
Yeah, I mean, on the page, Darabont really dials in on the tension in this scene. Check it out.
Interior stairwell day. Rick steps in, mind reeling, closes the door quietly behind him. Total darkness now. Shit. We hear him fumble out the book of matches. He strikes one. The glow is faint, but at least it's something. He moves forward. The staircase is a black, cavernous void yawning before him. Something smells bad, too. He goes to the railing, catches a direct whiff of the incredible stench below. He jerks his head back. Match goes out. Pitch black. In the dark, we hear the forced quiet of a man not panicking, the fumbling of a matchbook. Another match is struck. Light. Not many left. Only 3 after this. Gotta make them count. He starts down the stairs, leaning on the railing for support. He takes the steps like an 80-year-old afraid of tripping in the dark and falling. That stench. Jesus. He glances over the railing, trying to see, but the light won't reach down the stairwell. Match goes out. Pitch black. He strikes another one. More steps taken carefully. That stench from below is unbelievable. The matchlight shows doors on the landing below, vague in the darkness, a sign that says exit. Huge relief. Gotta get out those doors, then home free. Match goes out. Pitch black. Just sound now. Rick breathing, wondering if he should risk another match, coming further down the stairs in the darkness using the rail as a guide. Is he near the lower landing? He can't take it anymore. We hear the matchbook. He lights his next to last match. Relieved to see the doors closed, just a few more steps down, then across the landing. He can't believe that stench. He turns to the railing, peers down the stairwell shaft. Inky blackness below, impenetrable. Faint, guttering match in his fingers about to die. He's got to know. Can't help himself. He holds the dying flame to the last match in the book. It catches, flares up, igniting the matchbook cover as well. He leans out over the railing, lets it drop. The flaming matchbook plummets down and down, fluttering like a firefly in the dark, tight on dead man's face, and smacks a corpse's cheek, bounces off, lands inches in front of its decaying, sclerotic eyes. Flame dies, pitch black, angle in pitch black. Rick lets out a yell, runs blind, hits the door, the blackness suddenly torn open before us, throwing us headlong into blazing daylight. Rick reeling, blinded, hands before his face, trying to get his senses, to tamp his inarticulate terror.
Yeah, man. I mean, I always struggle somewhat with placing the act breaks in TV, but I think I'm leaning toward end of Act 1 about here. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it could be here. Could be as we get that sort of first shot of the grounds as well. I struggled a bit too, but to be honest, I think the blinding light at the bottom of the stairs seems the obvious place, right?
I think so, yeah.
So having safely descended the darkness, we are thrust into the blinding daylight as Rick exits the abandoned building. Things are no better outside, though, Lee. The hospital grounds are littered with bodies, wrapped up in sheets and body bags, hundreds of them, most seeming to sport some kind of cranial trauma, and poor Rick looks close to losing it as he stumbles out onto an adjacent field and up a grassy hill.
The atmosphere in these moments is incredible. You got like that the subtle orchestral soundtrack, Lincoln's sublime performance as Rick as he just stumbles from one ordeal to another. I mean, it's absolutely spine chilling, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen this, and I've forgotten just how great this opening was. Okay, so upon cresting the hill, our reeling hero finds himself in an abandoned military outpost. Finding no help here, he moves on up the road until he stumbles upon an abandoned bicycle. Its apparent owner, now a half eaten corpse, lies nearby. It should come as no surprise to the audience that the half eaten girl still has some life in her, kind of life, I guess. And the torso starts crawling toward Rick, who has now had his first undeniable proof that the dead have risen at around the 23-minute mark. Now he snatches up the bicycle and, somewhat amusingly, I thought, pedals off for all his life is worth.
I know, man. I mean, the sight of Rick in his hospital gown just wobbling off on that bike, it always makes me chuckle for some reason. Let's talk for a moment about this particular zombie. I mean, she's often referred to as the bicycle girl across the Walking Dead fandom. I mean, she became something of an icon, not only for her horrifying appearance, which is in itself a testament to the masterful special effects work of Greg Nicotero, but also for the kind of tragic, pitiful nature of her existence. Now, do you remember when I spoke about the various spin offs and web series that accompany the show earlier?
I do indeed.
Okay, well, if you want to learn more about Bicycle Girl, or Hannah, as we learned she was once called, the web series Torn Apart introduces us to her backstory and those of her loved ones in the initial hours of the outbreak and the circumstances that led to her bisected state when Rick encounters her. I mean, she was the first zombie or walker, as they come to be known, that really echoed the fact that, she was once a real human being. And as for the web series, it's worth a watch. The acting is a definite step down from the show, to say the least. But if nothing else, you can see the ramifications of giving a zombie mouth to mouth resuscitation. And I warn you now, there is an off screen canine fatality. So I'm bearing you in mind there.
Oof.
But I recommend checking it out, if only because it kind of offers a hint at the kind of show The Walking Dead would have become had it remained under Darabont's guiding hand.
Yeah, so you bring up a really good point there, Lee. I think it's worth asking about. The characters in the show never refer to the undead as zombies, do they?
No, that's an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought it up. So, the series creator Robert Kirkman has stated many times that in the world of The Walking Dead, be it comics or TV, zombie media never existed. So, there's no Romero, no Night of the Living Dead. Hence, people have no idea what they're dealing with here. Whereas, I mean, if this outbreak occurred in today's reality, people would pretty quickly associate the dead with zombies and ascertain the need to destroy the brain. But in Kirkman's world, no such law exists. Hence, the Z word is never used. Instead, we have terms like walker, lurker, roamer, etc., etc.
Nice. Good explainer, Lee. Great work.
Thank you.
Okay, so justifiably shaken, Rick manages to cycle all the way to his house, but his situation doesn't improve as he finds the house unlocked and deserted. There's no signs of his wife Laurie or his son Carl. It's almost enough to push Rick over the edge, and he begins to question his own sanity, as you would at this point. Is he dreaming? Is he hallucinating, Lee?
And it's good to see the ironing board out, though. I mean, at least Laurie had the wherewithal to make sure they look nice before abandoning ship.
That's good.
In the script, though, the house is in a much worse state. Broken windows, door ripped off. I mean, the whole house is trashed.
Yeah, and Rick is barely hanging on at this point and staggers outside for some air. He drops onto the stairs outside his house and spots a man stumbling down the street. He offers a disorientated wave to the man, but doesn't see a boy sneak up behind him, and bam, the kid blasts him in the face with a shovel.
KO.
The boy, Dwayne, calls for his father and states that I'm going to smack him dead. Get him, Dwayne. His father, Morgan, played by the always amazing Lenny James, dispatches the walker shambling toward them and reprimands his son that the undead don't speak. It's obvious when you think about it. He interrogates Rick, to ascertain the origin of his chest wound, but Rick has pretty much checked out of reality at this point and passes out Lee.
Yeah, I mean, that shovel pretty much rung his bell for sure.
Yeah, ding dong, bitches. So Rick wakes up and is tied to a bed. Kinky stuff. Morgan has changed his bandage, and Rick clarifies he was shot, not bitten or scratched. His captor slash savior then cuts him loose, but warns him not to try anything untoward or things will get stabby.
In the script, this is drawn out over two scenes, but otherwise there is very little difference in what's on screen to what's on the page.
So Rick joins Morgan and Dwayne for supper, and it's here that we first hear the term walker, which will become commonplace through the show. Morgan fills in Rick on the new status quo. The dead have risen, and if you get bit, it's pretty much a one-way ticket. That night, as Dwayne naps, Morgan asks about Rick's family. Their conversation is interrupted by a car alarm, and Morgan states that one of the dead must have bumped up against a car. They peek out through a blanketed window. Dwayne joins them, and sure enough, the car down the street is flashing and attracting the lifeless horde. Dwayne gasps, "She's here!" He moans before collapsing hysterically on the bed. Morgan does his best to comfort the boy as Rick watches a dead woman stagger towards the house and make her way ominously to the front door. He sneaks to the door and watches in horror through the peephole as the walker tries the door handle over and over, like she knows they're inside, and it's really chilling, this bit for me. So Morgan tells Rick it's Dwayne's mother, and she died in the next room, but he couldn't bring himself to put her down. And it's a really horrific moment, as much as in what it implies as to what it shows, and it hits us at around the 34-minute, 30-second mark.
Yeah, I mean, this is another prime example of Darabont's smarter, more instinctual undead. And I think we'll agree the idea that they retain something, some kind of, I don't know, some residue of who or what they were makes them infinitely more terrifying.
Yeah, man, I totally think so. And it also makes killing them a more troubling act for our protagonists, which I personally think is way smarter, you know? I mean, can you imagine having to put down a zombified loved one? I mean, it would be a horrific ordeal, especially, if they somehow recognize you. I think that would make things so much worse.
God, yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, incidentally, I put the end of Act Two here. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought so too, dude. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the next morning, our small group of survivors head outside, and Rick, upon clarifying that the walkers are definitely, absolutely dead, dispatches his first undead with a baseball bat. Something in the brain, Morgan tells him, and that's why you have to go for the head.
Hmm. But just after taking down his first walker, I mean, the first of a great many to come, we get a little extra dialogue in the script that never made it to the screen, which again sets Darabont's zombies apart from the ones we'd grow accustomed to as the show progressed.
Rick, fast, without pause, hauls off and splits its skull with a few brutal blows of the bat. The walker collapses, twitches at its feet, goes still. Rick, breathing hard, pauses to see how he feels about what he's just done. In truth, right now, he doesn't feel much of anything. He looks out at the female lying eaten in the street, throws a questioning look to Morgan. Morgan, if they don't find fresh, they'll eat one of their own. Take one of the weaker ones. They start down the street towards Rick's house. Morgan motions for Dwayne to stick close. Rick points. That porch, where you found me. You ever see anybody over there? That house? Morgan, area was pretty deserted by the time we got here. Saw a few folks scurry out, a few last holdouts, but not that house.
You know, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the comics and the show in general, walkers don't eat their own. I think it's this reasoning that allows humans to cover themselves in walker guts or even skins in order to move around in relative safety. But even then, they must be careful not to out themselves with sound and movements. I mean, and another thing, like if the walkers ate themselves, then eventually there would be none left because they would all just eat each other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this brings me to another point I've often pondered. I mean, the walker's eyes are usually cataracted, milky, or rotten. So, therefore, their vision is, if present at all, severely reduced. Hence, they are attracted to movement, sound, but mostly smell, I think. Hence, why the gut trick works so well.
Yeah, the mind of a prepper right there, Lee. So our zombie slayers head back to Rick's place, where the former cop deduces that his wife and son were alive when they left due to a lack of family photos in the house. Smart stuff. So
Hmm.
Dwayne pipes up that they've probably gone to Atlanta, as the radio before all the broadcasts were cut off spoke of a large refugee camp there.
Yeah, it's a cool character beat for Rick here, I think, getting to use some of his law enforcement skills. He's definitely adapting quickly to this new world order he's found himself in.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a little frightening just how well, how quickly he adapts to it, especially if you've read the comics as well.
You see, I believe that Rick was born for this new world. I mean, there's a line in a bit of a tangent here. There's a line in Frank Miller's Sin City where Dwight says how anti-hero Marv was just kind of born in the wrong time and would have been a legend, like had he been born back in medieval days. And I think it's the same kind of thing with Rick Grimes. If the apocalypse never came, he'd have lived an average life. His marriage would have probably fallen apart, but he'd have struggled on. Hopefully, he'd have been a good father, but in this new reality, he absolutely thrives. Something just kind of clicks in him, and he becomes this legendary figure, like a savior to hundreds, if not thousands, of people. It's for this reason that the show and the comics' main villains are always so well realized, be it like the governor or Negan or Alpha. They are all people who, like Rick, were just kind of born for this new world and have managed to adapt to it flawlessly.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective on things, I think, Lee. I like it. I've also found it interesting how the main antagonists, like Rick, they have a sort of relationship with order and chaos. And I think that's really sort of interesting. They're all on that sort of spectrum somewhere, just at different places. And the lengths they're willing to go to achieve what they desire is often sets them apart. Anyway, back on screen, and Rick heads to the local police station with Morgan and Dwayne, where they enjoy their first hot shower in who knows how long. And it's a really nice little character moment and offers us a bit of levity here. Just three guys lathering up, Lee, in relative safety and forgetting the horrors that lurk outside, if only for a brief moment. So Rick finds some clothes for Dwayne, and the two men discuss their next move. And it's Atlanta for Rick, but Morgan isn't ready to move on just yet.
I mean, there's some really, really great dialogue here and some great subtext on the page.
The boy's gone. The men start sorting clothes, quietly, staying out of Dwayne's earshot. Rick, Atlanta sounds like a good deal. Safer anyway. People. Morgan, that's where we were headed. Things got crazy, a lot of panic. Streets weren't fit to be on. Then, my wife couldn't travel, not with her hurt. Had to find a place to lay low, quieter. After she died, we just stayed, hunkered down. I guess we just froze in place. Rick, plan to move on? Morgan, when we're ready. Morgan pauses, evasive, ashamed, finally looks Rick in the eye. Morgan, haven't worked up to it yet. A long look between them, things not said.
Yeah, so Morgan is blatantly talking about his dead wife and getting over her loss, something he can only do by putting her down. I mean, Rick literally asks, plan to move on? Which is not just him talking about Atlanta, to which Morgan concedes he hasn't worked up to it yet. So to the casual observer, it appears like they're talking about moving on location-wise, but it's really about letting go of the past and coming to terms with his loss.
Yeah, it's subtext at its best, isn't it?
Hmm.
So Rick collects the remaining guns and ammo from the police station, and both men agree that Dwayne should learn how to use a gun, and Rick makes a point of giving Morgan a bolt-action scoped rifle.
Yeah, again, this is a continuation of the discussion they've just had. I mean, he's literally giving Morgan the means to move on, and Morgan understands immediately what his intention is. And also, I love the way that there's no hesitation on teaching the boy to shoot. Like Dwayne asks, "Can I learn? Can I have a gun?" And like both men are immediately like, "Yes, absolutely, yes."
Yeah, there's no room for mollycoddling in The Walking Dead.
No, sir.
So Morgan and Dwayne say their goodbyes to Rick, who offers some final parting advice and gives Morgan a police radio, which he says he will check in with at dawn every day until they catch up with him down the line. Morgan says they should be ready to leave in a few days, but spoiler alert, for those who haven't watched or read any further, those days are a long time in coming. Before departing, a familiar looking zombie shambles up on the other side of a chain link fence And it's Leon Bassett, the rookie who was with Shane and Rick during the latter's shooting. Rick confesses he never liked the guy much, but puts him out of his misery with a point-blank headshot.
Yeah, I mean, Rick's dropping the dead with nary a moment's hesitation already. Stone cold badass.
So the two vehicles head off in separate directions with a nice little honk of the horn, wail of the siren send-off. We then intercut between Morgan and Rick as Morgan tries to put down his undead wife and Rick stops to end the bicycle girl he encountered earlier. It's an amazing scene here. I've often wondered why Rick goes back to finish off that particular zombie. Do you have any thoughts on it?
It's kind of like a contrasting moment, I think, between the two men. Like again, to beat a horse, Rick is adapting, moving on. He's forging a path in this new world, whereas Morgan is literally nailing the doors shut. He's stagnating. He's trying to move on, but he can't. He can't bring himself to shoot his wife, and he can't bring himself to leave her either. And to be honest, it doesn't bode well for him and Dwayne, to be sure. Whereas Rick, on the other hand, takes the time to track down the tragic bicycle girl. And I mean, it's an effort. She isn't where he left her, so he has to hunt for her. And when he does find her, he's overcome with emotion and he tells her, I'm sorry this happened to you, before putting a bullet in her skull. I mean, so this is a mercy killing. He recognizes who or what she was, not as an individual per se, but as a human being who suffered an appalling fate. And it's kind of a statement, I think, that he will do what he has to, but intends to hold on to his humanity for as long as he can. And incidentally, I also put the end of Act 3 here. What do you think?
Yeah, in agreement with that again, Lee. We're vibing, dude. We're vibing on these acts.
Yeah, get in.
Okay, so it's a wonderful duel scene, and Lincoln and James are just, they just command the screen here, sort of during their characters' internal struggles. Morgan's grief and Rick's acceptance of his new world is totally amazing. And Lenny James is he's really incredible in this scene, I think.
He is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, just great performance. So we then cut to Rick driving down the highway toward Atlanta. He's on the emergency radio trying to contact anybody who may be listening. And there are people listening, a whole group's worth hiding out in the woods just outside Atlanta. It's here we get our first look at Dale, played by Darabont regular Jeffrey DeMunn, Amy, played by Emma Bell, and are reintroduced to Rick's good buddy Shane, who doesn't realize that it's his old partner on the phone and he's unable to make contact. The group lament that they can't warn the unknown traveler about the dangers the city poses.
Classic screenwriting technique 101 here. By giving the audience more information than the protagonist, it creates immediate tension.
Speaking of tension, there's plenty in the camp as a woman challenges Shane that they should have put warning signs up outside the city and that she'd be happy to do it. This leads to a tense standoff between the two before they share an intimate kiss, hello, after which she confronts her young son. Now, if you haven't already guessed, a cut back to Rick sees him looking at a photo of his wife and son in his cruiser, and of course, it's the woman we've just seen kissing Shane and in his arms.
At this point in the script, we actually revisit the opening scene with the little girl at the gas station and get some resolution to the scripted cliffhanger as we watch Rick escape from the waking horde back to his vehicle.
So back on screen, Rick finally runs out of gas and is forced to head out on foot. He eventually finds himself at a farmhouse and he approaches cautiously, making his presence known so not to alarm anyone inside. He needn't have worried, though, as when he peeks through the parlor window, he finds the former occupants dead in a seeming murder-suicide and the words, "God forgive us," written in blood on the wall. Very sinister. He checks a nearby truck but can't find the keys, and it's then he spots a horse in a nearby pen. He gently calms the animal, then saddles up and heads for Atlanta, leading to that absolutely iconic shot of Rick riding up the highway leading to the city. The highway leading out of the city is on his left, rammed with burnt out and abandoned cars and a ruined train to his right.
Let's check out this scene in the script as it is beautifully written and just another great example of how Darabont evokes such wonderful imagery with his writing.
Exterior highway day. Rick grimly rides the horse up at a slow walk, stops and gazes off softly. Rick, holy God. Wide reverse angle. Atlanta before us. skyscrapers looming like silent tombstones. Several are just charred husks. They caught fire at some point and simply burned out of control until the fires died. Rick and the horse are standing on the freeway. The lanes going into the city are empty, but the lanes heading out are choked with thousands of abandoned cars and SUVs. There are many wrecks in evidence, doors hanging open, fenders crumpled, windshields smashed. Everybody tried to leave at once. Some ran out of gas, some had accidents. And this is the result, an endless river of dead metal. Rick spurs the horse forward. And speaking of beautiful imagery, Lee, there are several shots of Rick riding the horse through a seemingly deserted Atlanta that rival those in 28 Days Later. It's eerily quiet, save for the clopping of the horse's hooves.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, maybe a horse is definitely not the stealthiest way to enter the city.
No, I would agree there. And as our horse riding hero passes a burnt out bus, several of its long dead passengers begin to stir and make their awkward pursuit, suitably alarming the skittish horse. Slightly off topic, really, but it's always impressed me how extras playing zombies manage to uniformly simulate undead movement.
Well, there's a good reason for that. In order to play a walker on The Walking Dead, one must first graduate zombie school.
What the hell are you talking about, Lee?
Okay, so there is a literal class run by the show that teaches extras how to move like a walker.
Oh, man, I bet that was fun.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. I want to go to and graduate walker school. That'd be a fucking great certificate to have on the wall, wouldn't it?
So Rick is able to keep the animal calm and move further into the city, past an abandoned tank, when a sound catches his ear. A helicopter, Lee? He catches glimpses of it and kicks the horse into pursuit, his excitement temporarily overriding his sense as he gallops down the street, rounds a corner, and slap bang into a herd of walkers. It's hundreds of them. Oh my God! He wheels the horse around and heads back the way he came, but the dead are swarming him now from all directions. The horse rears up, throwing him to the ground before it's pulled down and torn apart by the dead. So note to horses everywhere here, Rick Grimes is not to be trusted. There's no respite for Rick, though, as the walkers are coming for him now. He crawls under the tank, but trapped either side by steel treads, he can only go forward, and the dead are coming for him front and back. He kills a few, but is smart enough to save the last round for himself. He whispers an apology to his wife and son, puts the gun to his head, and spots an open belly hatch under the tank and hauls himself inside to relative safety. Oh, catch your breath, folks. That was an intense few minutes, kicking off at around the 1 hour, 1 minute mark.
Hell yeah, man. And it just serves to contrast how well these first episodes flipped almost instantly from kind of quiet reflection to unrelenting terror in the blink of an eye.
Yeah. So Rick scrambles through the tank where he finds a dead soldier slumped in a corner. He tries to retrieve the fallen hero's weapon, but in doing so stirs the corpse and is forced to dispatch it with a gunshot.
Yeah, note to self, firing a massive revolver inside a small enclosed metal box is not a good idea.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. But to be fair, it's a life or death reaction. But it does ring his bell, so to speak, and a deafened and disorientated Rick heads for the open roof hatch. But he barely gets a second of respite before the dead swarm him again, and he's forced back inside, sealing the hatch behind him.
Interesting drop of trivia for you. The zombie in the tank was actually played by genre icon Sam Witwer.
Okay, so it seems like poor sort of use for an actor of Witwer's caliber.
Indeed it does, doesn't it? However, there is a fascinating reason behind this, which we'll come back to in a bit.
God damn you and your blatant clickbaiting, Lee.
The last reason will shock you.
Fuck off. That. Okay, so Rick takes a moment to steady himself as the dead pound at the tank. He's safe for the moment, but his long-term prospects aren't looking so good right now. But just as all hope seems lost, the radio inside the tank crackles to life and an upbeat voice pipes up, "Hey you, dumbass, you in the tank. You cozy in there?" And off Rick's bewildered expression, we head outside the tank as Wang Chung's classic Space Junk starts playing, and this delightfully mellow tune plays us out as we watch Rick's horse being torn to pieces by the horde, and watch as the seemingly endless tide of undead swarms the tank and the surrounding streets.
Nice. So I know you're a fan of the show and the comics, like I am, a man of culture and impeccable taste. But what was it like revisiting this groundbreaking pilot?
Yeah, I mean, this is great, isn't it? I mean, I enjoyed the show. I love the comics, and I think this is a great kind of adaptation. I think the show's cast is really great, and they all do a great job. The production design is really cool. I love the noisy, grainy way the
Hmm.
show is shot here as well. I think it's a great choice, and it does kind of reflect the choices made by the 28 Days Later team as well. The big thing for me was how much kind of pathos there is in this episode. I mean, Lenny James was a real star here, and I think his performance in this first episode and the contrast painted between Morgan and Rick really went a long way to legitimizing something that could, in the wrong hands, be kind of a bit shit.
Hmm.
I mean, the other thing for me was reading Darabont's script, and he is just a masterly.
And mate, every time I have a Frank Darabont screenplay in front of me, I know I'm in for a great time. And this was no exception. I mean, this guy is an absolute master of the craft and brings a real literary prose to his work. I mean, I was, as you know, as I've said, I was a huge fan of the comic before the show came into being, and I remember when it was announced, I was so excited, and it just became this like massive event thing. Like watching each episode of The Walking Dead as it came out was just like a weekly non-missable event, and listening to all the people who were experiencing it for the first time was just an absolute joy. It was a great, great time.
Nice, dude. Nice. Okay, then, man. Let's break this baby down. Okay, so as I'm sure you are all aware, we begin our breakdown with a retrospective look at our reasons for choosing this script in the first place. So, first up, let's have a look at whether or not this episode adheres to the classic four-act structure.
So, for those unsure of what we're referring to, classic American TV shows were generally constructed to fill an hour-long time slot and accommodate three commercial breaks that would thus divide the episode into four segments, i.e., four acts. Now, in the pre streaming era, it was vital that the audience wasn't lost during those attention busting commercials. If they flicked the channel, they were pretty much gone. So it was a routine habit to end each segment with a mini cliffhanger or exciting plot development to keep the fickle viewer from changing channel. So, Days Gone By runs for around 66 minutes. So let's divide that up equally. And we are looking at around 16 and a half minutes per act. I mean, this isn't set in stone, but if we look back at where we put the act breaks in this episode, it does roughly conform to that time frame and thus the four-act structure.
Awesome. So, pretty much a textbook example of the tried and tested formula. And worth studying if you're sort of interested in this. So, how closely does the show follow the plot of the comic?
Well, the first episode covers roughly the first issue of the comic, but the comic is pretty lean. I mean, things happen fast and it doesn't spend a lot of time in one place. For example, the whole opening with the undead girl at the gas station is missing from the comic. That was created purely for the show. Most of the early stuff with Rick and Shane is also missing. Basically, in the comic, Rick is shot at the bottom of page one and he wakes from his coma on page two. There's no don't dead open inside moment either. Rick just stumbles upon a group of walkers in the hospital and barely makes it out alive. Bicycle Girl is still encountered, followed by Morgan and Dwayne, but in the comics, Morgan's wife is barely mentioned in some throwaway dialogue and is long dead and gone by the time we meet them. They head to the police station and Rick sees them suitably tooled up before going their separate ways. They still encounter the walker at the fence, but in the comics, Rick doesn't shoot it. Rather, he saves the ammunition. Though he does still seek out and put down the bicycle girl, though. His car still runs out of gas on the highway, and he walks to the abandoned farmhouse. The dead family is still there, minus the blood graffiti. And he still saddles up the horse and rides into the city. No helicopter in the comics, and no tank either, though. The horse just goes down under the weight of a walker horde. But Rick is pulled off the street and to safety by Glenn, and that's pretty much where the first issue of the comic closes.
Cool. So, I mean, it's fairly close then, but I mean, justifiably kind of expanded. And I dare say in some ways kind of improved upon for the show. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think many would argue with you on that, myself included.
Cool. So we've covered the first episode, but how closely does the show stick to the comic in later seasons?
Well, all of the main arcs from the comics are interpreted to the show in one form or another, but as the show wears on, there are some pretty big changes, mostly around characters and their respective fates. Big spoilers inbound, by the way. So if you haven't watched or read the
Yeah.
comics or watched
Spoilers.
the show, yeah, just be aware. We are going to spoil the shit out of it for you now. For example, series frontman Daryl Dixon, played by Norman Reedus, does not exist in the comics at all. He and his brother Merle were invented purely for the show. Another season favorite, Carol, is killed off really early in the comics and never shows any hint of the badass she'd become on screen. Andrea, whose comic evolution from scared girl to badass sniper to Rick's eventual wife, the character would prove so unpopular in the show that she'd be prematurely killed off, and most of her plot arc transferred to Michonne instead. In the comics, Carl is always kind of destined to take his father's place as kind of the sort of savior of the apocalypse, and ultimately does so. Whereas in the show, he is unnecessarily killed off, and his role passed on to Judith, who in the comic only survives for a few months before being gunned down alongside her mother during a chaotic prison escape. Darabont regular Jeffrey DeMunn didn't want to stick around after AMC axed his buddy, so his character Dale was killed off far sooner than originally intended. And there are countless other changes that have been made over the years, but these are some of the biggest ones. And there are always a couple of random things that always bug me a little about the show and to a lesser extent the comics as well.
Well, I do love a little critique, Lee. So come on, spill the beans.
Okay, I warn you now, this is all just me being really kind of pedantic about stuff. But the first thing that always bugged me is how easily characters stick a knife through a walker's skull throughout the show. Not that I've ever tried this, of course, but obviously bone is tough. Skulls are tough to pierce, and the ease with which the cast stab in and out of skulls is something I find a little bit annoying.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever really thought about that, to be honestly.
Man, I've seen enough episodes of Forged in Fire to know how tough a human skull is. Now, I dug a little into how long it takes for a skull to weaken and grow brittle after death. And apparently, after 6 months of decomposition, the human skull is notably weaker, having dried out and become brittle. But I mean, I'm thinking, I don't know, would a skull dry out if it was surrounded by like soft, soggy, rotting flesh? I don't know. Who knows? And another thing that annoys me is after a while, they start stabbing walkers through the bottom of the jaw with knives that are way too short to reach or damage the brain. I mean, and plus, brains are tricky things. People can lose big chunks of their brain and still function in society. So, exactly how much of the brain do you need to destroy to take out a walker? In the show, it seems like pretty much any form of puncture in any place will do the job. But surely there must be a specific part of the brain you need to destroy to kind of stop the zombie from functioning. I don't know.
Yeah, you thought about this way too much, dude.
Yeah, probably. Another thing, while I'm on my little rant, another thing that makes me chuckle about this show, especially later on, is the lack of ammunition for firearms and how that becomes an issue.
Okay, so what's wrong with that?
Dude, like, we all know how much America, God bless you guys, loves its guns, right?
Okay, and
Well, conservative estimates put the amount of firearm ammunition readily in public law enforcement and military hands at around a third of a trillion, the majority of which is in the public domain. Now, you know how much I love math, right?
yes, I do, Lee. Hit me.
Okay, so the population of the US is around about 340 million. So after a decade of the zombie apocalypse, let's say that at most, there are 1 million people left, and that is a very optimistic projection. So that means that for each survivor, there will be around about 333,000 rounds of ammunition. I mean, that's quite a bit, right?
Yeah, that it is. But how accurate are your calculations, Lee?
Fuck knows, man. Fuck knows. I mean, maths was never my strong point, and if anyone has a more accurate projection, please feel free to correct me.
Okay. Okay, so you dropped some hints about the tank and the soldier earlier. Maybe now it would be a good time for you to elaborate on that a little bit.
Okay. So Darabont's original plan was to kind of throw in a special episode every season that would focus on different characters, largely unrelated to the main story, and would fill in some random backstory. Hence why he cast Witwer as the tank zombie. See, under Darabont's lead, Series 2 would have started with a Black Hawk Down type episode where a group of soldiers would have been dispatched to man the Atlanta defenses and had to fight their way through a worsening city until only one remained, bitten and dying. He'd crawl into the tank, prepare to kill himself with a grenade, but expire before he could do so. Hence why in the episode there's a grenade on the shelf next to him. There'd then be a time cut, and then Rick would enter the tank and put the zombie down.
Oh, that sounds so good.
I know, right? But AMC weren't having it. Despite the show's success, they wanted to spend less money on it, not more. Can you imagine if we got one of these episodes every season there? I mean, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever they would have become the highlight of each season of the show. There was even thought to kind of showing Andrea and Amy being rescued by Dale in the background while the soldiers were doing their thing. I think it just would have been amazing.
Oh, that would have been awesome, wouldn't it? Okay, so we've waxed lyrical about Darabont. So how does he elevate this script, and what, if anything, has changed in his writing style in the 20 years from the last script we covered?
Well, let's not forget that the last Darabont script we covered, 1988's The Blob, which is fantastic, by the way, both film and script, you should check it out if you haven't already, was co-written with Chuck Russell, so I can't say for sure where Russell's influence ends and Darabont's begins. However, there are some instant similarities. The use of underlining and uppercase font to illustrate key points in the script, the excellent wordplay and descriptive narrative is still clearly on display. And Darabont still tends to keep his characters moving and active during their scenes. The Walking Dead script is also leaner. The action lines tend to be shorter and there is less camera direction than we found in The Blob. Is it better? Yeah, I'd say so. But in the kind of way you'd expect any artist to have improved after 2 decades, I mean, let's be clear, the man wrote a bloody excellent screenplay 20 years previous and has just aged like fine wine.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at our characters. Are there any introductions that stood out as particularly effective or memorable to you, Lee?
It's got to be Rick's intro from the script. Let me read it for you. Reveal. The driver, Officer Rick Grimes, one eye on the gauge, the other on the highway. Unusual. We'd expect a guy like this to be spit and polished, but he's not. He's haggard, exhausted, unshaven, no tie. He shields his eyes against the sun, seeing ahead. How about you, Bud? What was yours?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would be picking Rick's too, but I thought, as maybe another introduction to pick out, just for Darabont's wonderfully kind of evocative prose, is where we're introduced to the young girl from the cold open. So
Nice.
It's a touch longer, but yeah, check this out. A pair of bunny slippers can be glimpsed a few rows away. Pale, dirty ankles, a little girl. The feet shuffle along, desultory. In this heat, these conditions, she'd have to be malnourished and dazed. The slippers come to a filthy teddy bear on the ground. A little hand reaches down, picks it up by one leg. The bunny slippers shuffle on, teddy bear dangling. Rick, heart racing. He knows he has to rescue her, doesn't want to scare her. He rises, weaving among the cars, camera following as he tries to catch sight of her. He comes around a car, catches a brief glimpse as she moves out of sight. Pajamas and pink terry robe. Follow Rick faster, desperate not to lose her. He comes around some more cars, sees her up the row ahead. Rick calling gently. Little girl? Little girl? She slows, stops, looking very vulnerable. Little shoulders, badly matted hair, that dangling teddy bear. Rick. I'm a policeman. I'll help you. Don't be afraid, okay? Pause. Little girl? She turns, staring at him with deep sunken eyes, flesh drawn tight on skull and bone, lips torn away, leaving just a snarl of teeth. She's got braces, clots of old decayed meat caught in the metal. She's dead. Not sick, not dressed up for Halloween. Dead. A hungry glare comes into her eyes, the closest thing we'll ever see to a natural thought. She starts toward him down the row of abandoned cars. I just thought that was so great, really kind of evocative, a great little moment there.
Brilliant.
Before we break down the scarology, Lee, did you have a scariest moment from this episode?
Oh, I mean, the scariest for me is probably Rick under the tank and just seeing, I think because of that, it's just seeing how fast things go from being in full control to knee deep in shit. I mean, yeah, the walkers are slow and stupid, but if you put enough of them together, yeah, it's game over, man.
Yeah, there's a kind of claustrophobia element to that sequence as well, isn't there?
Mm,
Sort of trapped under this tank,
yeah, absolutely.
unable to get out. Yeah, I mean, I thought for me it was kind of Morgan's wife at the door. I mean, there's something just really haunting about that moment, which I can't quite put my finger on, but it feels like a kind of Hitchcock moment to me. And the
Mm.
idea that she retains something of her former self is just really kind of eerie. You're looking at her eyes, and there's something about that which is quite scary for me. All right, then. So let's talk about the scarology. So first of all, yes or no answer. Does the film more or less conform to the 10-minute rule?
No. Although, if you scare easily, you could probably add to the scarology to make it so, as there are definitely some unsettling moments we felt didn't quite make the scarology.
Okay, so break it down for us.
Okay, so our first scare and our first ever walker sighting is the little girl at around the 4 minute mark. And then it's a fair wait through the credits and a hefty chunk of backstory before we reach the infamous Don't Dead Open Inside door at 19 minutes.
You're just gonna, you're just going to keep flogging that horse, aren't you, Lee?
Yeah, you know it. I mean, our next real scare clocks in shortly after around the 23-minute mark and features the infamous bicycle girl. And then it's a little over 10 minutes to the next one, which is Morgan's dead wife trying to get in the house at 34 minutes and 30 seconds. And then it's a fair wait for our final real big scare, which is the Atlanta onslaught at 1 hour, 1 minute.
Awesome. Well, let's break down those acts for you. So going by our predetermined act breaks, we have two solid scares in Act One, including our cold open with the undead child. Act Two starts and ends with a bang in the form of Bicycle Girl and Morgan's dead wife. Act Three skips on big scares, giving us some more character development and world building before the final act throws in one hell of a cliffhanger with our first real look at how dangerous the undead can be.
Fantastic. Do you have any thoughts on the themes at work here?
Yeah, so I feel we're going to be pretty kind of tightly aligned here, Lee. But if we're thinking about our sort of Parker themes, I think desire for order and certainly kind of morality of individuals plays strongly in this. I think this is present in all the characters and throughout the entire series. To be honest, the show is about people trying to sort of rebuild after an apocalypse style event, and those attempts to rebuild some form of order jut up against characters who either have embraced chaos or characters who are willing to kind of go to extreme and morally dubious lengths to secure some form of order. Obviously, as the series continues, Rick has to make decisions about how far he's willing to go to protect people, and has to do things which are pretty close to terrible, for for what he sees as the kind of the greater good. I think in a wider context, I think this is really just a kind of study in human nature and empathy, and what kind of stress or circumstances it take for individuals to lose sight of their humanity and empathy for their fellow humans, kind of dead or alive. And when that goes, kind of what depths of animalistic kind of savagery, we're capable of.
Yeah, yeah, I get you, man. I mean, so I'm kind of in parrot mode here, but yeah, I mean, our Parker themes of desire for order and morality of individuals are definitely up there. The survivors crave some form of order, hence their constant attempts to rebuild some kind of civilization throughout the show and the comic. Morality of individuals comes into play all the time as our survivors are constantly asked, how far will you go to survive and protect those you care about, and how far is too far? In a more specific sense, I think the show is about survival versus humanity. Rick, for the most part, manages to achieve both, but for the numerous adversaries he encounters down the road, they've all kind of forgone their humanity to some extent. And I think it's this reason that probably leads to the inevitable clash between them.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Okay, so what, if anything, do you think you learned from this script, Lee?
I mean, first and foremost, a great story is a great story. I mean, we've seen this before with book adaptations, and now one of the most successful TV shows of all time began life as a comic book. It's a great example of improvement through adaptation, and it makes me think of all the great material out there just waiting to be adapted. I have several comics in mind that I'd love to adapt one day. Secondly, and we knew this already, but Darabont is a bona fide master of the craft, and every script of his is like reading a how-to book. His character world building and descriptions are top tier from start to finish.
Yeah, I think I just kind of agree with all of that, to be honest, Lee. I mean, I love the kind of construction of the episode. I love the short passages of text. It's a really easy script to read and engage with. I think it's fantastically constructed in terms of its kind of four-act structure. But yeah, I'd really just sort of second what you said there, really, dude. I think one thing that does stand out, and you mentioned it in the episode, is that Darabont keeps his characters moving. They're always kind of doing something, and oftentimes that in some way sort of reflects what they're going through emotionally as well. And I just think that's a really great sort of thing to learn from any of Darabont's scripts, to be honest. But yeah, this one as well. Well, I think we're almost done here, dude. So, but before we wrap up and talk about our next episode, what would you rate the script and the film here?
Okay, before we get to that, should we throw in the first issue of the comic in here too for shits and giggles like?
Yeah, what the hell? Why not, Lee?
Hey, cool, man. Okay, so I'm going to give the episode and the script a solid 9 apiece, and the first issue of the comic a respectable 7.
Yeah, so vibing. I was thinking 8 out of 10 for both the episode and the script. I love the comic, and I'm going to give that a 9. I mean, I think the comic is really sort of fantastically constructed for that medium. And it's totally kind of iconic at this point. It's also worth remembering the artwork in this comic is black and white. And, in a world of kind of splashy, colorful books, with larger than life kind of heroes and villains, this book still kind of stood out and caught on and became a total phenomenon. So I think it's worth, every part of that 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to rank the entire comic series, it'd definitely be higher. It's my go-to book to buy people who I'm trying to convert to the cult of comics, and so far it hasn't failed me yet. But just for the first issue alone, though, I'm going to stick with a 7. Like I say, if I was to rank the entire series, it'd be an 8 or a 9 for sure. Okay, so what does that give us? That gives 17 out of 20 for the script, 17 out of 20 for the show. Nice. And the comic, the first issue of the comic, 16 out of 20 for that first issue. So I think that's pretty fair grade all round. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I think so. I think that's pretty fair.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, high quality stuff all round, isn't it? From the script to the show to the comic book, it's all pretty iconic, all pretty awesome. So yeah, that's pretty good, I think. Okay, man. So what's on the agenda for next time, Lee?
So next time, as chance would have it, we're diving into another comic adaptation, this time the vampire classic, 30 Days of Night.
Oh, nice. Nice, man. Looking forward to that. Okay, good stuff. So if you enjoyed the podcast, please hit like and subscribe. It's totally free. And if you're feeling generous, please leave us a highly positive review on your podcatcher of choice because it really helps us find new people and new people find us. Check out our socials as well. We're on Facebook and Blue Sky and can be reached there. We also publish to YouTube, so you can listen to us there. There's no visuals currently, but plenty of audio goodness. Feel free to drop us a line with any thoughts on our website. That's www.scripttoscreampodcast.com. We always love hearing from you guys, and we have much more content there, script samples, scarology graphs, all sorts of stuff. Now, exciting, we are also now offering script reading services. Now, this is new. We will analyze your scripts and give you tailored feedback on your work. We are also, and this is quite exciting too, Lee, creating pitch decks for projects. We'll collaborate with you to create a stunning pitch deck for your project, which you can then take out into the world and get pitching. So if that's of interest, do go to the website, navigate to the script reading page, and you can get all of the info there. But until next time, Lee, do take care.
Watch out for walkers and keep writing those scares.